let's get started. Go ahead, Monica.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Monica. I'm one of the co-creators of Revel 11, along with Joni, who's waving.
Hi.
I don't know about you, but what really struck me about Marci's description of this morning's talk was her reference that listening begins with listening to ourselves. So it was kind of funny last night. I met a friend's new boyfriend for the first time, and I decided I was going to experiment in preparation for this. So I slowed down and I observed my inner dialogue about, like what was going on in my head while I was talking to him. And wow, it's amazing how quickly I was jumping to conclusions about someone I don't know. So in context to what's going on in our country, I'm so grateful to Marci for bringing this topic to us, because it's so important. And I also want to thank all of you for joining us this morning, because this is the first of our Summer of Self-Love series that we're going to be meeting every Friday morning at this time at 8 o'clock just for 30 minutes. So thank you. And as a reminder, please mute yourselves. You can pin the speaker and feel free to leave on your video. If you have questions during the presentation, just ask them in the chat section. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marci.
Is she there?
Marci, you're on mute.
Now I'm very glad that I was muted, because I was going blah, blah, blah,
Don't
like
listen
that.
to me about mute, not you.
So there is what was just Monica was just saying about having a head full of thinking and all sorts of thoughts going on, and learning to get in touch with that is one of the aspects of learning to really deeply listen, and how to put that aside. And I'll be talking about that a little bit in just a moment. And I would like to there's so much to learn about the art of listening, and I'm just going to shoot into one little tiny aspect, or actually a large aspect of that today. I just want to sort of share an overview of how important this is for me and what it's about for me. I think I understand that that there's a sort of that you guys are looking at how to look at the world spiritually and to grow and evolve spiritually. And I really feel that listening is one of the acts through which we can do that. Years ago, in the midst of a car accident, really right in the middle of it, before we even hit, I was suddenly left my body, and I will not give it all the details about that, but the important thing is I heard this little voice inside that said, the only reason you're in this life is to learn to love. And that was huge for me. It was a kind of nirvana sort of moment, and it became very clear that that's what I needed to do. And it's been a lifelong journey ever since, and it isn't necessarily a feel-good kind of a thing. It's actually one of the hardest things in the world to do, is to learn to love. And I think the operative word there is to learn, in that we're always learning. We're never there, and if we think we're there, then we're not. And I discovered many years ago, through very good listeners and also learning to become a mediator, about the power of listening, the power of being heard, and the power of, and what I needed to do in order to quiet the mess in my head, in order to be present to another person. And it's alchemy. It's quite a journey to learn to be a listener, and I consider it a spiritual practice. In fact, I call listening social meditation, because in order to truly listen, we have to quiet down what's in our head, what's stirring up in our hearts, and sort of put it aside. It'll never go away, but put it aside to be present to this other person in front of us. And so when I was asked this week, was it Wednesday you guys called me, to talk about, no small order here. Can you
No.
talk about how we can apply listening to all of the horror that's going on in the world, and the change, and the racial tension, and the fear, and everything in the world? Sure, I can do that. So I started thinking about what can we do here, and what can I address? And it came to me, I sort of feel like life is soul school, and that we're here to learn things. And that one of the primary lessons is to learn to love, and the act of loving. And when I look at this situation now, and as it has been evolving over years, decades, I feel that we are being asked spiritually to rise above our mental constructs of belief, to rise above sort of the tear gas, if you would, of our differences that kind of blind us, and to sort of swim through these torrents of feelings in order to be able to connect soul to soul, spirit to spirit, human to human, to be able to move through our own dross, to be able to see this other person fully beyond all belief systems. That sounds radical, but I feel like that's what we're being called to do. I read something, and I'm very surprised, being politically how I am, that I loved what George Bush wrote the other day. He wrote a beautiful statement, and in essence it said that right now white America needed to listen to Black America. And I would also add that blue America needs to listen to red America needs to listen to blue America, but we won't go that far today. But what does that look like? How do we listen? How do we do that? Of course, we all hope that the opportunity presents itself to be able to truly listen in some way. And right now, I don't know what that looks like. But when I start thinking about the kind of listening that ideally could happen, and this is where we have this little screen up here where I've written things down, but I'm going to say it because many of you were just listening. I would say that there's different kinds of there's listening, and it begins within ourselves, and we're going to do that today. That we can be called to listen to our own triggers, our own emotions, and to listen to what they're saying, so that we can move past them and heal them in order to be open to others and what they're feeling. Then the next step would be to listen to those who have been oppressed. Listen openly, without defensiveness, even though their anger may be directed at us as a member of our own race, in order to hear what they need as a human being. And then here's a really hard one. This is hard. To be able to listen to those who we have an aversion to be able to understand what is underneath their positioning and their behavior in order to hear what valid human need they are seeking to meet. That listening to validate another's humanity despite philosophical and behavioral differences. That's a tall order, and that's in an ideal world, and I will actually say that I've had those conversations and I'm practicing that so that I can hopefully teach that. And then listening across differences in general, learning to listen across differences to find commonality, to find our common humanity, and also to practice the dialectic process, which is a process that our early fathers of democracy said that we need. The dialectic process is one person posits their idea, another one posits their idea, and then we use listening and reason and care, love, to come to the third idea, which is a combination of both for the best of the commonwealth, the common good, so that we learn from one another's best ideas and that we put those together. That, in my mind, is what the process of creating a democracy is. So that's a tall order, but we're going to go back to the beginning. Today, I'd like to invite us to, if you wish, if you want to follow along, I'm going to a little bit lead you through a process. to listen about listening to ourselves. When we're listening to other people, we're often hit by their feelings. And if we've not processed our own feelings, and if we've not heard our own feelings and validated our own feelings, and it's really hard to listen to another. Ideally, we would ask them to listen to us. Somebody's got to listen first, right? And so our feelings are signposts. They're lights that say, listen, I have a message for you. They're not something to be put aside, to be ignored, to be overrun. Sometimes we get so many feelings we don't know what to do. And so the invitation here is to actually get in touch with those feelings as our own inner wisdom. One of the tenets, the primary tenets that I teach when I teach listening, is that each person is the wisest person he or she knows. Often, though, we get into a train wreck in our heads and in our hearts and our bodies, and we can't sort things out. And that's where a good listener helps us sort those things out. Well, we can also do this for ourselves, of learning to listen to ourselves. And the first place to listen is not to all the mind noise that's going, but to what's going on in the body. I believe that the body never lies, and the body has really valuable wisdom for us. And so I'd like to lead us through an exercise exploring how we can listen to our feelings to access our own inner wisdom, particularly as it relates to what's going on in the time around us. But today, go with whatever is coming up for you. So the invitation, I'll just give you an overview, is we're going to be listening to various feelings, to a feeling in our body, and asking it for its wisdom. And so I invite you to get comfortable right now. Put your feet on the ground, if you will, or get your snuggly blanket around you, whatever makes you feel good. And just get quiet. And breathe into your belly. Breathing to the chest makes us a little anxious, but if you can, breathe into your belly. And breathe in 4 to the count of 4, and breathe out to the count of 8. And I'm just going to be quiet while you do that for about 3 rotations. And focus, as you focus on your breath, just imagine all the cacophony, all the newsreels, all the pictures, all the emotion, all the story, just sifting like dust down to the ground. Just let it just sift down to the ground right now. And now imagine just with each exhale that your mind, your body, and the world just all settle down for just a moment. That nothing else, nothing's happening in this little bubble around you right now. So check in with your body. Just do a scan of your body from your toes on up, just slowly, just feeling your body within, feeling the body within, your own relationship with your body. And assess how it feels right now. And as you assess, you might notice that one or two places are holding more feeling than others. In your mind, go to those places or to one of those places. It might be your shoulders, it might be your stomach, it might be your chest, your jaw. Just go to where perhaps there's some tension or some pain. And just sit with this feeling, this place in your body. Sit for a moment in what might be discomfort. And just sit with it. Just like you might hold a little child who had just fallen to comfort them. And just hold that place. And breathe into your belly and sit in this feeling. Open to it. Instead of clench around it, open to it. We tend to resist feeling, open to the feeling. Because this feeling can be your teacher. Now listen to that feeling. Ask it what it's feeling. Ask it what it wants, what it needs. Ask if it wants anything of you. Notice any soft, murmuring words, or especially images that might arise as you listen to it. Usually, when these feelings speak, they're soft and simple. So I'm just going to give you a moment to listen. And know that it might not be ready to speak, and that's okay. And remember to breathe. Keep sitting with this feeling. Still listening. And at the same time, for the moment, invite the feeling to just dissipate. Imagine the feeling, imagine that it's a cloud that now lifts and dissipates, melts into the ether, as feelings do when they are listened to and validated. For the moment, let it go. It may come back. And keep listening for the lesson. Now, it may not come back to you today, it may not have, and it may not come back, a lesson or some words from that may not come back, and you can just begin slowly to just come back into the room, into the Zoom. In fact, it may not come through your inner voice. Any answer that you heard or may not come through your inner voice, but through signposts that show themselves to you along the way, something someone says, an article that occurs to you, a bird that sings, or stepping stones that kind of arise in front of your feet, in front of you, that move you along into the right direction for healing. So be open to what's offered to you. Be open to what comes to you as a way of healing or listening to that feeling. Surrender to listening to what arises within and around you to teach you what you need to know. So the point of this is to get in touch with your thoughts and feelings, to listen to them and to let them dissipate, so that when you are listening to someone else who may have strong emotion, you are able to put your own aside for a moment instead of having a clash of feelings, which is what often happens in a conversation, because each person's emotions are coming raw and unheard, wishing the other person to hear simultaneously, and it can't happen. So you could kind of designate yourself as the first listener by taking care of listening to yourself first. And I invite you to think, and I'm going to in just a moment open it up for you to ask questions, but I'm going to invite you to think about being in that space of deep listening, of holding the pain, the feelings of another, especially someone who your own people who have oppressed, and hearing them without defensiveness, of just being able to hear them openly and take their centuries worth of anger. Even harder would be to listen to somebody who you might find repugnant, whose beliefs are diametrically opposed to yours, and who is hard to hear. But imagine listening to them and for the humanity in their feelings underneath. And that really, in my mind, is what we're called to do, and it's not easy. So I'm going to just turn it over now and invite you to ask questions or say what's on your mind right now.
Well, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
It makes me think about times when I am trying to listen to someone, but they say something that triggers me emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost impossible to think about like what's going on in my spot in my body, which tends to be my stomach.
Right.
So
Right.
do you have like tools? Is it a deep breath? What do you do when you're triggered?
Yes. Great. Great. Yes, a deep breath is good. I mean, is to why I invite you to do this now, and we have half an hour to learn this lesson. But it's a practice of being in touch with one's feelings, so that hopefully you aren't caught as off guard when in a clash with somebody else, in a conversation with somebody else. But the world is as it is. But so yes, the thing is to be able to breathe and to put yourself aside, put your own stuff aside for a moment to be present to this other person. But the breathing into the belly is comforting. Breathing into the chest creates adrenaline and more fight. Breathing into the belly creates endorphins and calms you down. And that's why. And to just say, this isn't in your head, you can say, this isn't about me right now. I'm going to give over to this other person. Now, I have said when somebody has come at me fast and caught me off guard and I am really triggered, I have said, I'm really triggered right now. I need a moment to catch myself. Can we talk in a few minutes? And would you mind listening to me after I listen to you? So at least my inner being has that surety that it's going to be heard too. So.
We have a question from someone, and you guys feel free to turn off your mute if you just want to ask questions. I think we're a small enough group.
Yeah, I love hearing voices. That'd be great. Yeah.
But the question was, how can we learn more about this practice?
Well, I am in the works of creating a Zoom class to be able to do this, to be able to teach listening. It's when I actually teach through the libraries in King County, and as well as I'll be doing Zoom classes. Maybe I'll even come on here and do a Zoom class for you guys, but so we can do that. I also have companion notes that I could send out that are just written. They're like 15 pages. It's not huge amount of reading. I try to condense it, so I could send that to you. But the class is very experiential, and I step you through the layers of skills needed to listen. Mostly listening from the inside out, because most listening just teaches you how to reflect back and ask questions, and it doesn't address the internal aspect of listening. So you could get in touch with me, or you guys, you know. Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned previously that, you know, this list of 4 items on the screen that since this is a 30-minute class, you're only going to get through the first one. So there's
And not
definitely a lot more to learn, and hopefully we'll
Yes.
have you back to do more.
Yeah, lots to learn.
We would love that. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you, Marci, so much. I'm just so thrilled
And-
that we were, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I want to make sure everybody's okay, because we just raised up some feelings, and I just hope everybody's okay. And I encourage you to take a moment to take care of yourself in case that brought things up for you. So anyway, go ahead.
well, thank you for checking in. I think that it's really important at this time to check in with yourself and check in with others, because our emotions are so heightened on so many different levels right now. So that's really important. I want to thank you so much, Marci, for saying yes in such a short amount of time. We did this in about 24 hours, and we can't thank you enough. This is just vitally important conversation. I myself was having a conversation last night with someone who does not have the capacity to listen, and I was trying to use some of your tools to convince this person, you know, to have a broader perspective and to look inside. And so I know that I'll be utilizing this training this morning, and hopefully more training with you, Marci, that to be able to hopefully open his eyes as we move through this period of time and this period of history that we're all living through right now.
May I add one thing to that? May I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
In listening to ourselves, we also have the inner wisdom inside us to know what to do. And before we just do knee-jerk responses, I'm going to go volunteer at this place, I'm going to go do this thing, to quell these feelings, or we think quells, I suggest taking time to listen to the feelings and let the feelings tell us what to do to lead us forward, rather than operating out of frontal lobe, out of just, you know, kind of an anticness. I would suggest just taking time to figure out what to do, how to respond to what's happening in the world. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Listening to your heart and separating those two things. Our mind is so powerful, but it really is coming back to your heart and listening to what is important to you personally. So with that, thank you, Marci. We'll be in touch about doing more around listening. I think it's incredibly important. For everyone else, we would love to have you join us for yoga this weekend, Sunday at 8. We're doing meditation and yoga with Tina. It's an hour-long class now. Then we have two really exciting events next week. One is how to improve your impact in presenting online. I think we can all utilize these tools that we'll be hearing from Dana. That's Thursday. And then Friday morning, we'll continue our Summer of Self-Love series with the topic of that discomfort you're feeling is grief. And again, playing off of what we're discussing today, there is a lot of grief right now, and how do you deal with that? And on the 17th, the Menopause Adventure. Some of us are going through menopause or perimenopause. How do we handle that? We have incredible experts that are going to be talking us through that and how to thrive during this time. And then we also have some Pilates classes, and if you have any ideas on topics that you would like to hear, please reach out to either myself or Monica, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you again, Marci, Monica, and everyone. What an amazing 30 minutes this morning. Thank you so much.
Great way to start the day. Thanks, Marci. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hope to see you next week.
Bye, everyone.